Hello there and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. This time I wanted to talk a little bit about the new movement systems that have been introduced with 5.0, and mainly about the way the characters having these new systems being perceived and received by the players, both pre-release and post-release. But first, let me talk a bit about how these new movement systems have been added, because it's possible some of you might not have played 5.0 yet, or if you did, you might have not gone into Natlan because you're doing the story in order. So in Natlan, with the 5.0 update, we have gotten ourselves 3 new mob types that allow you to pretty much possess their body and use their movement abilities, each of them being based on one of 3 elements: Dendro, Geo, and Hydro, with 3 more being released in the future. Not sure exactly what elements those would be, with Electro, Pyra, and Cryo being the most likely candidates, but with Chaska being Anemo, it's entirely possible Anemo is one of those. Either way, there's a total of 6 Saurians, but that's not the important part. The important part is the new movement that they each bring, with some of them being kind of like reminiscent of previous movement systems. For example, the Dendrosaurian is able to not only create its own grappling points, well, not really create the grappling points, but like grapple to the air in front of it and above it, but it's also able to grapple to specific pre-existing points, very similar to the grapple points from Sumeru. And the Hydrosaurian is able to surf on the water and increase its speed on the water, very similar to the boats that we've seen throughout the different nations up to this point. The Geosaurian I don't think has anything similar to it before, because what the Geosaurian can actually do is it can burrow into the ground and go up walls, pretty much. So you could go up almost any wall, depending on, well, how tall it actually is. Now, these are quite important because they're very, very important for the exploration of Natlan, where one of the tribes in Natlan have a focus on verticality with the Children of Echoes, and there being a focus on the Geosaurian. The people of Springs being close to a lot of water, you have a focus on the Hydro one, and the Signs of the Canopy have again lots of verticality, but you have more grapple points all around the different parts of this little mini region. So, generally speaking, you kind of need to use the Saurians in order to get the proper experience when it comes to these, and sometimes to even do certain quests. For example, a world quest within the People of the Springs area requires you to ride a spirit way in order to get to the upper islands. So you do need the Saurian or Moalani. And that's where the main problem kind of arises for some people. The new characters that came out in 5.0, and most likely any future ones, because we've kind of seen some of what Shilonen could do, for example, and she has something similar where she can go up walls. And I do wonder if it's going to be elemental related or tribe related. So is she part of the Children of Echoes, or can she do that just because she's Geo? That's a good question that I cannot wait to see answered later with future characters. Anyway. So each of the 3 characters from 5.0 have a power very similar to the 3 Saurians. Moalani is able to surf on water and use the spirit ways. Kinich, which even though we haven't really seen him properly in action because he's not yet in, most likely will be able to grapple, somewhere upwards by holding down the skill, and of course grapple to any of the Saurian grapple points throughout the Signs of the Canopy territory. And of course Kachina is able to use her little drill in order to go up walls. So where does this whole player-based reaction pre- and post-release that I'm talking about, what's it all about? So, as always, before a character is even truly revealed and properly given to us to play them and to see and experiment with the character, people like to assume things, and before we got a proper look at Moalani in game or Kachina, people were very excited for these characters because they would excited or scared of these characters depending on what kind of player you are, because they seemed to pretty much power creep anything that has to do with movement. Moalani would power creep Yalan, Kachina would power creep anything like verticality related and everything like that. So some people were excited for this because they would be able to get a round wave faster than having to get Yalan C1 or Shanyun C1. And some people were scared because this was a very obvious like power creep sort of deal, even though it's not in the true power of the character, because you would want to pull for these characters specifically to make exploration better. But once we are actually seeing the character in game and how the mechanic of the movement works, people started to, well, pretty much shit on them, because they were like, oh, we don't care about this character anymore, because in reality, outside of Natlan, the character is useless. Truth be told, I feel like Moalani with the lower cooldown kind of goes around the same amount of speed as a C0 Yalan if you really want to go about it. Not sure about C1 because I don't have that. To me, this sort of reaction is expected at this point from the Genshin community, but I always like to say, wait to see what the finalized version of the character is going to be before you make a proper opinion on them. Because if you just do your opinion purely based on pre-release information that we get from beta leaks and stuff like that, why would you be surprised when the character's entirely different when we actually see them? I feel like this was very similar with the Emily situation. Or I do understand why some people really wanted the purple Emily, but that was just a leak of concept art. Do we even know if those are official? But yeah, while in Natlan, the three characters I listed, and most likely any future ones, will power creep anything that has to do with movement purely because of the phlogiston mechanic and the fact that they use less Night Soul points, the previous characters still feel and are more than useful, even in Natlan. For example, you might just not want to pull for Moalani, because some players do not want to pull for characters purely based on exploration capabilities. I personally pull for her, but not because of her exploration capabilities, though I still haven't properly got her to a build point because I'm still waiting for Shilonen and Mavuika to most likely be able to do an OP team for her. I feel like us as a community should temper our expectations, generally speaking, when it comes to Genshin, and especially when it comes to anything that has to do with rumors, because we get to points like these where characters go from being the most OP power creep version of Nouvellette or Yalan to being pretty much not really wanted by anyone because they don't really do anything better outside of Natlan. Right? Even though a lot of recent characters seem to be and characters from the last two versions, while lots of new ones and interesting mechanics, a lot of them were trying to fit in niches that were supposed to come at some point. And honestly, in my opinion, having more characters fill in the niches still required by certain teams. Like we finally have, is it called forward vape what Moalani can do? You know, like you apply a pyro and you do the vape with a Hydro character, because up until this point we haven't really had a proper character that could take advantage of that. So why do we put the focus purely on the movement of the character, which generally doesn't really matter that much? But there is one single point I feel like where this actually is better to have the character, and that is, for example, in the Signs of the Canopy area, you rarely find Geosaurians. So sometimes you are stuck with trying to use the Dendrosaurian grapple points, or just grappling around in the air, trying to scale up a very tall wall. While most of the time there's more than enough Saurians around, sometimes it does end up happening that you might just want to get one of these characters, and it might make you feel like you need to pull for them. But in reality, you literally don't. So what's my conclusion? In a way, yes, the new characters are power creeping movement. In a way, we're talking purely about Natlan, but even then, you're not required to get the new characters. When it comes to anything that the Saurian the character can do, a Saurian can do as well. And anything else, you could still use Yelan, you could still use Kazuha, you could still use Zhao and Shan Yun for any form of movement. Outside of Natlan, the characters are pretty much, in my opinion, on par with the existing, at least at the C0 characters. So I'm not going to really count C1 Yelan, even though I really should. Either way, they're as good, if not slightly worse, than existing characters. So was there any reason to overhype them and then later underhype them? Not really, but then again, it's a gacha fandom in the end, and unfortunately, we're never really satisfied, are we? Well, if you did enjoy watching this video, I do have a couple more Natlan videos that I posted in the last couple days, and I have a couple more that I want to post in the next few days. But if you did enjoy this one, why not leave a like, comment, or even subscribe? That would also allow you to catch the next ones. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.